And at 10, forgetting Foxy. I'm pretty sure the Foxy mechanic was added to help prevent the player from just keeping their screen down the whole night, since you can't really be jump scared if you don't bring up the tablet with the cameras unless you're looking at the wrong side of the office. So Foxy is a way to ensure that you have to look at the cameras to hold him back, otherwise it's guaranteed that you're going to be jump scared. However, forgetting about Foxy and not checking Pirate's Cove is a horrible idea, even if unintentional. My personal strategy is to put the camera on Pirate's Cove whenever I'm closing the tablet, just to ensure that the next time I open it, Foxy gets his dose of eyes on him. So just like Peanut, you know, the SCP, he will stay in place. And that just makes sure that I don't forget about him, because my reaction time is not fast enough to stop him from getting into the office. And at 9, music box. The music box is in essence FNAF 2's equivalent to Foxy, having to keep the music box wound on a specific camera to ensure the puppet doesn't do that really creepy walk thing to jump at your face. The puppet also isn't fooled by a mask, making me think that it would instead get launched at you in the original FNAF 2, but who knows. The VR version of FNAF 2 though is much easier, with you just needing to hold down the button like Eddie VR does when he played through the game. He just held it down and used his other hand. But either way, forgetting to wind the music box is a big mistake. In FNAF 1, all you need to do was look at Foxy, but in FNAF 2, you have to go to the camera and then intentionally wind it, and it's certainly something else. It's another layer that you need to be aware of. At least you get a little warning when the music box is running low though. I think that this makes the strategy of leaving the camera on the prize counter when you close it a good idea as well, since at that point, even if it's really close, you don't need to spend time trying to freak out and like look for the actual camera before you get sprung. It's just up there, so you can just rewind it real quick. And at 8, speedrunning. Trying to speedrun something like FNAF is actually impossible, with each individual night having a set amount of time that you need to get through to actually survive. Around 42 seconds per hour if memory serves. However, there are certain aspects of the game that you can try and speedrun, particularly in FNAF VR and the additions like the Curse of Dreadbear Halloween DLC. Games like The Hallway, Build a Dreadbear, Corn Maze, and a couple others can actually be speedrun in a sense, since these aren't reliant on surviving until 6 AM. These are reliant on completing a set of tasks, like collecting a key and leaving a maze, or completing a brain for an animatronic. These kinds of things can be speedrun, however it's still not a good idea. Trying to speedrun something like the Corn Maze will absolutely result in a failure or a jump scare, since Foxy always knows where you are, and the only way to actually avoid him is to hide behind cardboard cutouts. But these cutouts are only in specific places, meaning you need to camp one and then wait for him to see you in order to be the most effective. But ultimately, it's just a bad idea and you should avoid it. And at 7, timeline. Trying to think about a FNAF timeline is probably one of the worst mistakes or decisions that you can ever make. The FNAF timeline is not for the faint of heart, and honestly, if it wasn't my job at this point to think about it, I wouldn't even have touched the damn thing. Before we started making FNAF videos, do you think I was just sitting at home thinking about the timeline? No, I just trusted what MatPat said. And honestly, that's what I'm sure a lot of you do as well. There are some things in his FNAF theories that I would question, but since it wasn't my job to care, I really didn't. And it didn't make my life any worse, so trust me, if you aren't getting paid to talk about FNAF, or aren't trying to make a career by talking about FNAF and its convoluted what-if story timeline, don't bother. It can be fun to speculate, but don't invest a lot of time and energy into it because it will honestly have no benefits. Spend that time playing games with yourself or with your friends. Hell, even make like a D&D campaign based on FNAF. I mean, like, I was thinking about doing something like that for my own channel, but you could just use it as a way to have fun with the people who share your passion. But don't worry about the timeline though, okay? Trust me, all it brings is pain. And at 6, panicking. Panicking when playing a FNAF game is bound to happen. It's happened to me the first time I played, and it happened to me the first time I played FNAF VR on the channel. What a video. However, what you really need to focus on is staying cool and calm and collected. Remembering that the animatronics can't actually hurt you and that panicking is only going to result in what you fear actually happening. If you're freaking out because you can't find Bonnie, you're not going to find Bonnie. Especially because he might be like in the back in like a shadow or something and really hard to see, and you're just flipping through trying to find him. Plus, panicking results in you closing doors to make sure that you don't get jump scared, and then that only makes you lose power faster, which ends up resulting in you getting jump scared because you're in pitch black. Panicking is the worst thing that you can do in any real horror scenario, so why would you do the same thing in a fake horror scenario unless you needed to do so for plot reasons, like you're in a movie? Exactly. So chill the F out, okay, and honk Freddy's nose a couple times to calm your nerves. Halfway through in at number 5, looking behind you. In FNAF VR, you have a whole range of motion for yourself. You can turn your head wherever you want, whenever you want, you can move up and down as you please, but honestly, none of that is going to do anything for you. Hiding underneath the desk, like what would be realistic for this scenario, is only going to result in you getting jump scared. Because the game only relies on the buttons you're pressing and the locations of the animatronics for information, rather than the location of the actual player. Plus, nothing ever really interesting is behind you, so looking behind you while you're in the middle of Night 5 of FNAF 3 isn't really going to help anyone other than Springtrap, so clear your mind, focus, and get me those pictures of Spider-Man! But no, honestly, don't waste your time looking behind you. You could end up missing vital information, like someone going into a vent, or someone now being at your door. Just keep your eyes on where the action can be and focus on what is actually going on, rather than looking for Easter eggs. Easter eggs are usually within that area anyway, aside from maybe helping in FNAF 2's filing cabinets, but still. In at 4, thinking logically. The FNAF world doesn't contain logic. I've said this once and I'll say it a million times. I will die on this hill every single time. The logical answer when it comes to what's going on in the FNAF universe is usually the incorrect answer. The door should close without power. Incorrect. The animatronics shouldn't actually be able to be possessed, especially by an emotion. Incorrect. The freaking door shouldn't be able to close without power. Incorrect. The only thing that really makes sense is how the light works. That's it. Other than that, you just throw everything you know out the window. If you don't end up thinking logically, you'll be fine. Oh, this would be the most likely moment to attack? Nope, they'll do it when you're most aware. But now that you're thinking that a logical thinking is logical, it suddenly becomes illogical. It's an infinite loop and a paradox. That's what FNAF really is, a lie. One big lie that will never be solved. But you keep clicking on these damn videos, so I'll continue to talk about it. Can you see how this video is starting to break me? Getting close to the end, in at number 3, not listening. Sound is such a vital part of FNAF. So many different aspects of the game actually rely on sound, especially in FNAF 4, 5, and 6. FNAF 4 requires you to listen to the doors before opening them to know what side they're coming down. In FNAF 5, you needed to know where Ballora is and where Funtime Foxy is in their respective areas. And in FNAF 6, you need to listen for the scrapped animatronics to make sure that you don't get jump scared while you're busy working on getting that sweet, sweet lore, bro. But ignoring the sound will result in ultimate failure. I used to play the game without sound. The game would actually be physically muted because I was playing it on the school bus or in class for research, something like that. And yes, it was actual research because one of my projects in grade 9 was based on FNAF. Either way, not having sound certainly makes the game not scary, but it also makes the game much more difficult because I couldn't even hear if Chica was in the kitchen. So I'd have that door closed a lot more than normal just because I was trying to find Chica, which would also result in me running out of power. Look, I wasn't a risk taker at the time, in FNAF, life, or with girls, but now I am a risk taker. In FNAF. But ultimately, in at number 2, too much door. Going along with the whole not listening thing, using your doors too much will result in death every single time, even if the doors make no goddamn sense. The doors use the absolute most power in the original FNAF, making you run down very quickly, around 1% every 5 seconds or so, at least from memory. And using it in combination with other things like the lights or the cameras only makes it worse. Much worse, in fact. Especially if you're using everything at once, which is just stupid. The doors should only be used when the characters are at your blind spots, which makes the game very risky since they can at points skip that spot if you're on the cameras. So if you adopt the strat of using the lights before checking the camera, you could be in for a save. However, there's a lot more to factor in rather than just those individuals. The Freddy Files doesn't even really help with this kind of thing. I mean, maybe I should make a video called playing FNAF the way Scott Cawthon intended or something, and see how far I can get just based on the strategies from the Freddy Files Updated Edition. But then again, like I said, I'm not a risk taker. Oh wait, no, I said I am a risk taker now. Damn it! Finally, in at number 1, playing. Probably the biggest mistake that you can make in FNAF history, and the one I tend to try and avoid, is actually playing the game. Just think about it. If you don't play FNAF, then you don't have to worry about the jump scares or the stress at all, or hell, even the timeline. You can just sit there and watch other people scream on your behalf. And isn't that everyone's dream? And it's not even just a dream theory, it's just a dream. It's probably the biggest mistake you can make, and it's just because you decided to boot up the game. I've only played FNAF VR a handful of times, and while I do still suffer at the hands of Freddy Fazbear and Scott Cawthon, that's not due to me playing playing the game. That's because of you people and your unwillingness to click on literally any other kind of video we release. Like, I'm joking, but I'm also not joking. So like, can you for God's sakes just click on some of the Minecraft videos for once? Or like if we play something else, like that new open world horror spider train fighting simulator or whatever it is. Could you watch that one too? Cause like I've been wanting to play that. It's exhausting talking about FNAF every day, man. Like, I love the series, don't get me wrong, but every day? Especially with people yelling at me because I suggest that like Crying Child is the one that you should not have killed, and that's not what MatPat says. Like, bro, we've made over 300 FNAF videos at this point. While we may not have as many subscribers as the big FNAF channels, I think we have at least as much knowledge, okay? We have talked about around 3,000 FNAF related points. Assuming those were all top 10s. I mean, they weren't, but like we've talked about roughly 3,000 FNAF related points. I think that you can cut me a little slack here. Do you want me to play that spider train fighting simulator game, horror, whatever it is? Do you want me to play it? Let me know in the comments. And actually, I don't know if I want you to say yes or not, so let's just leave it up to you. Now, I'm not going to go in order based on the timeline, but rather the game's releases. So I'll be starting with FNAF 1. In FNAF 1, we play as a night security guard just hired by Fazbear Entertainment to work at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, the Chuck E. Cheese of this reality, where instead of a mouse for their mascot, it's a bear. Freddy Fazbear to be exact, along with his band of Foxy the Pirate Fox, Chica the Chicken, and Bonnie the Bunny. The story, as we're told in the game, is that the robots are programmed to walk around at night so that their mechanisms don't lock up and they don't break down. So you, as the night guard, need to keep an eye out for them, since if they see you, they'll think you're an animatronic endoskeleton without a suit on, which is against company policy, so they'll try and put you in a suit so you don't get in trouble. However, by reading newspaper clippings on the walls that can swap out and paying attention to sounds, we get a bigger story behind the dark history of this pizza place. And while a couple of mishaps are mentioned, like the infamous bite of 87, an incident referred to as the missing children's incident is the inciting moment, when 5 kids go missing while spending time at the restaurant. And while an unnamed suspect was arrested, they had to let him go due to a lack of evidence. They never ended up finding the bodies of these children, but reports coming from parents and staff about the animatronics leaking blood and mucus and smelling like death, along with the repercussions of the incident, ended up getting the place closed at the end of the game, but not before we're fired for odor and tampering with the animatronics. That's seemingly where things ended. However, in FNAF 2 we start to see more. Now, FNAF 2 is largely accepted to be a prequel to the first game, meaning that it takes place before the events of FNAF 1. This year was determined to be 1987, with FNAF 1 taking place in probably around 1993. In FNAF 2, while the story remains largely the same, the animatronics need to walk around at night so they don't lock up, and will put you in a suit if you're seen, the introduction of new characters and new 8-bit mini-games you can play when you die opens up this simple point-and-click to a much larger story. With a mysterious figure colored only in purple, we see him kill 6 separate characters, 1 in the Take Cake to Children minigame, and 5 in the Foxy Go 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 minigame. Each minigame is followed by a jump scare related to an aspect of the minigame as well, with Foxy Go Go Go's jump scare being Foxy, and Take Cake to Children being the newly introduced puppet animatronic. This would later be revealed to be because the victim in Take Cake, the one that gets killed outside the restaurant, actually goes on to possess the puppet, and is the first of now 6 victims. The other 5 from Foxy Go 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 are the missing children from the missing children's incident that go on to possess the original 5 animatronics: Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, Chica, and Golden Freddy. This mysterious purple guy would also become the main antagonist of nearly every game in the series, and would later be revealed to be William Afton, the part owner of Fazbear Entertainment. FNAF 3 is where the story was actually originally meant to end, with this installment having some of the most confusing parts yet. This game has 2 endings, and is the first one to do so. The first one being the bad ending, which you'd get from playing the game normally. But through secret codes and items, you could unlock the good ending, which has the souls of the original 5 missing children being put to rest in what is now known as the Happiest Day minigame. The story of the main game, however, is that 30 years after the first game's location closed in 1993, so in 2023, the first location is reopened and themed to be a horror house, as a way to commemorate the grisly deaths that occurred. But unknowingly, the owners released an animatronic that wasn't quite what he seemed. Well, they knew he was an animatronic, but but what they didn't know, and what we're told through between night minigames that we can play, we learned that this animatronic, known as Spring Bonnie or nicknamed Springtrap by the fans, is actually the purple guy. After trying to free himself of his sins by disassembling the original 5 animatronics, Afton unknowingly released their spirits, who show themselves and attack him, causing him to freak out and jump back into his Spring Bonnie suit, which is a specially designed suit that works as both an animatronic and a normal suit. It's not realistic, but it's important for this next point, since the robot parts are moved aside by mechanisms called spring locks. These suits, which there are 2 of them, are also referred to as spring lock suits. These spring locks, though, tend to fail when wet, so since the room was leaking, the spring lock mechanisms in the suit fail when Afton is inside, causing all the robotic parts to be put back into place. This grisly scene of Afton being shoved full of metal and robotic parts doesn't kill him, however, which will be explained later, and the canon ending to this game is seemingly the good ending, meaning that after FNAF 3 there are no missing children to put to rest, right? Well, you'd figure that was the case after the location burns down, but this is where things get complicated. Thanks to the community's disappointment with the Springtrap jump scare, Scott Cawthon, the creator of the series, made a new game, FNAF 4, where instead of a security guard, we're a child protecting ourselves from animatronics in our bedroom. But there's more to it than that. These animatronics are scarier than anything we've ever seen before and are referred to as nightmare animatronics. These caused quite a bit of confusion and still do, but basically they aren't real animatronics. They're figments of this kid's mind that are created while he is fighting for his life in the hospital. This is indicated to us by the fact that we play as a child in the Between Night minigames that seemingly dies at the end, and because at some points you can see flowers, an IV, and pills next to your bed when you turn around, because your bed, you also have to look at your bed. All 3 of these things are separate Easter eggs, like they don't all show up together, but they're something that you'd normally find in a hospital room. The story of this game is that this child, known as the Crying Child, since no canon name has been revealed at this time, was scared of the animatronics for some reason, but had to keep going to Fazbear locations because lo and behold, he's the son of William Afton, the purple guy. So the son of the purple guy was scared of these animatronics somehow, and this causes him to freak out. But at the end of the week, at his birthday party, which they threw at Freddy Fazbear's for some reason, his mean older brother and his friends put Crying Child's head in the Fredbear animatronic because it would terrify him. However, thanks to this stunt, the animatronic jaw crushes Crying Child's skull, sending him into a coma where we fight for our life. What we see in the coma is actually the main game, where we're in the bedroom fighting against the animatronics. The game ends after we defeat the animatronic known simply as Nightmare, who is representative of death, and hear a flatline. A character who we all guess is Afton then tells us, "I will put you back together," and we see what is now the infamous FNAF 4 box, with the haunting line of "perhaps some things are best left forgotten for now." However, the contents of this box are never truly officially revealed. There are a lot of theories, but nothing set in stone. This game is really the earliest in the timeline since it takes place in 1983, as we learned from the TV and the minigames that says Fredbear and Friends 1983, and it was later confirmed in the next game. The next game in the series is FNAF's Sister Location, where the name reveal of William Afton occurs. However, the name was first revealed in the novel The Silver Eyes, but don't worry, I'm not getting into those today. Hell no. Sister Location is really the first story-driven FNAF game, with a series of nights, but those nights being completed after the main story of the night is done, where you as the new technician and night guard of Circus Baby's entertainment and rental have various malfunctions to contend to. Your guide throughout this game is the new Circus Baby animatronic, who helps it make you through her friends' issues. Her friends being the new fun-time versions of Freddy and Foxy, as well as a new animatronic named Ballora and her mini-Renas. The Between Night minigames of this game don't really reveal much until a blonde-haired girl is offered ice cream by Baby and then gets grabbed by a giant claw coming out of her stomach. This blonde girl is actually William Afton's daughter Elizabeth, who after getting scooped goes on to possess the baby animatronic, changing its eye color from blue to green. It's also assumed that this incident of Elizabeth getting scooped is what Crying Child saw to make him scared of the animatronics, given that the nightmare animatronics have stomach mouths, which would make sense if he saw a giant claw come out of the stomach of Baby, which would mean that these minigames are actually the first event in the timeline. Given that Circus Baby and her friends were meant to headline a new restaurant called Circus Baby's Pizza World, and the death of Elizabeth actually ended up causing them to call it off after just one day. And then at the end of the game we get shoved full of an animatronic amalgam called Ennard, that is in essence a combination of all major animatronics that we encounter throughout this game that uses our body to escape the facility that they're being held in. They then abandon our body when we turn physically purple due to intense bruising, or at least I think it's because of intense bruising, but somehow we aren't actually dead. We say it ourselves, and so does Baby. We then learn that we play as a character named Michael, the third Afton kid who is presumably the older brother of Crying Child, although that is still currently up for debate, who made it his mission to now find his father and put an end to his crimes. This is also when it's revealed that Springtrap survived the FNAF 3 fire. FNAF 6 is where things really come to an end for most of these characters. Between the releases of Sister Location and FNAF 6, aka Pizzeria Simulator, a conversation between Circus Baby and the rest of Ennard can be found in the source code to ScottGames.com, Scott's website. This conversation reveals that Baby ended up getting kicked out of Ennard, becoming her own animatronic once more in this game in the form of Scrap Baby, and what's left of Ennard becomes Molten Freddy. This game features us as Michael once more, now being the owner of a pizzeria. However, paragraph 4 of our contract states that at the end of every shift, we need to check out back for an animatronic, and if there is one, grab it and bring it inside for salvaging. We do this 4 times with 4 animatronics. Scrap Baby and Molten Freddy, like I said, along with a new animatronic Lefty, and one known as Scrap Trap, basically just a really run-down Springtrap William Afton. Lefty is actually an acronym and was meant to trap the puppet, last seen in FNAF 3 before the fire, and it's revealed that this whole pizzeria was really a trap set out by the other owner of Fazbear Entertainment, Henry Emily, the father of Charlotte, the one who died in FNAF 2's minigames and possesses the puppet. And while us as Michael, Henry, the puppet, Scrap Baby, and Molten Freddy burn in the fire, Scrap Trap is able to escape, but the resulting damage puts him in a coma, which brings us to the next game. FNAF 7, known as Ultimate Custom Night, is the capstone to the original story. Afton is in a hospital in a coma, unable to die even after being taken off life support, and he's being tormented much like how his son was when he was in a coma in FNAF 4. The reason Afton isn't dead is thanks to a spirit that's possessing him, keeping him alive, known as the one you should not have killed. There are debates as to who this character is, perhaps Cassidy, the one who's possessing Golden Freddy. However, I personally believe that it's Crying Child, his son, who is causing his father to suffer like he did, since his death was on his father's hands, because, you know, you kind of superpowered an animatronic job. That's really all to the story of this game, since this is where we learn about various other lore bits that really just explain some other things in the series, like that I've already covered at this point, thanks to voice lines by characters that they say after you die. For example, this is where we learn that the Nightmare animatronics never actually had physical forms, or that Chica's victim named Susie was the first of the missing children to die, but not the first death overall. That's still Henry's daughter Charlotte, who possesses the puppet. And we thought that this is where Afton's story would end, but haha! In FNAF 6, known as FNAF Help Wanted, he's back. This time as sentient code in the form of Glitch Trap or Malhare, whatever you prefer to call him. In this game, which is actually a game in the FNAF universe as well, a VR game to be exact, he is considered a virus, and his code is split into 16 pieces, all contained on various audio tapes that you can find within the game. The main point of this game is to assemble these tapes, but doing so results in him returning to full power and taking over your body, locking you in your own mind. Our player character in this game, Vanessa, then goes on to become the antagonist of Security Breach, where half of her is herself, but another part is William Afton controlling her and calling herself Vanny, dressing like a bunny, similar to how Afton did when he was alive and wanting to kill. The latest game in the series, Security Breach, is more so a soft reboot of the series, with the canon ending just being as confusing as the whole timeline. Afton somehow has a body again in the form of Burn Trap, Vanny is left in the wind at the end, and Gregory, our player character, is the most mysterious kid yet. But it was mostly to set up where the series could go next, since Scott announced his retirement before the game came out, and whoever takes over next can now go whatever route they choose. They can bring Afton back, they can leave him dead, they can use Vanny as the antagonist, or go on to use the newly introduced blob of black goo with Funtime Freddy's face. It's a world of possibilities, and I'm not making another video like this when the next game comes out, so use this one, okay, then learn the next one on your own. And at 10, character names. The names of various characters over the years have remained mysterious. Sometimes they don't have a name, other times it's an alias like the purple guy, or other times they're just random names decided by the community. However, in all of these instances they don't end up actually being canon, and something I noticed a lot of in the comments is the misuse of names that have either no origin or very weak origins and believing them to be canon. One of the best examples of this is the Crying Child and Mrs. Afton. Crying Child currently has two names that are being used, Evan and Chris. Neither of them are canon, and only one of them is actually a theory, and not even a strong theory at that. So far they've only been able to find E, V, and A, and not the N in any solid fashion. And the whole Clara Afton thing is just very outlandish to me. Just because there's a name doesn't mean it belongs to anyone. Does that mean that Crying Child's name is Vlad because the purple character in that soap opera was named Vlad, or is that William's new name? Like, come on. And at 9, Mic Trap. The Mic Trap versus Wool Trap debate, at least in our comment section, seems to be over. At least until this video goes out and people are gonna spark it up again to troll. However, the debate over who is in the Springtrap suit is still heavily debated on Reddit and other comment sections, thanks to the final scene from Sister Location that involved the final speech from Michael and the reappearance of Springtrap, confirming some theories about him surviving the fire. However, the appearance of Springtrap accompanied by the line of "I'm going to come find you" left some people thinking that Michael was the one in the Springtrap suit instead of William, also leading to the conclusion that Michael was Purple Guy instead of William. Which is wrong, as confirmed by Scott when he said to check Matt Pat's explanation on the subject, which resulted in the conclusion that Michael had no way of being the purple guy and thusly being Springtrap. However, the introduction of Scrap Trap reignited the debate, and I'm not too sure if it's been put to bed at this time. And given that Scott will be relinquishing ownership after security breach, I don't know if we'll be getting another Reddit post about it. Although, Mic Trap for Springtrap is absolutely not canon. It was confirmed to be not canon, so stop. And at 8, Bite of 87. The Bite of 87 is one of the most mysterious moments in the entire FNAF series, and it was introduced in the first game. Being introduced in the series in FNAF 1 from 2014, the Bite of 87 has remained one of the most debated points in FNAF history, and we can't quite agree on what happened. At first we thought it was Golden Freddy who caused the bite, then Freddy, then Mangle, then Fredbear, then Toy Chica, then back to Mangle, and everyone has their different opinion on the subject, but for some reason most people think that it's confirmed that the Bite of 83 from FNAF 4 is the Bite of 87, which it isn't. If you Google Bite of 87 on Google Images, you get pictures of the Bite of FNAF 4, which is in 1983. I'm sure you're seeing pictures of this incident right now even. The Bite of 87 and 83 have been confused for ages, and they're still being confused to this day. Honestly, it's kind of frightening based on how many people get mad at me because I go against something MatPat said, but then also tell me that I'm wrong about the Bite of 83, even though I agree with MatPat on that point. That 83 is not 87. Also, the calendar doesn't agree with that. 83 is not 87. Can confirm. And at 7, FNAF 4. FNAF 4 is such a controversial point in the FNAF timeline, and I know I say that every time. But even now I see that it's more controversial than I thought. See, there's a debate within the FNAF community about whether FNAF 4's main gameplay is a dream or real life, and there are arguments for both sides. I personally believe that it's still a dream rather than real life, since the sound discs that cause you to hallucinate were not introduced into the games until Sister Location, and the Ultimate Custom Night dialogue supports this. However, assuming one way or the other is not very useful when trying to discern a timeline. I do realize this as I'm saying it, so from now on, if I can remember at least, I'll be doing my best to include points to support my theory from both sides of it, meaning that like if it's also like points for if it's a dream and points for if it's not a dream. Although I'm curious to hear your ideas. Do you think FNAF 4 is a dream or is it real life? And why? Be sure you let me know down below. And at 6, fan games. There have been multiple instances of people in the comments using points or story elements from FNAF fan games to try to prove my theories wrong. For example, a YouTube user commented on another video saying that Vanny's mask appears in the FNAF fan game called Aftermath. So my statement that her mask appears in the DLC to a game that's meant to look back on the past tragedies of the franchise and that could mean she's from the past is false, even though Aftermath is a FNAF fan game and has no canonicity in the main series, which I don't understand because like why would you use a fan game to try to prove me wrong? On a video that has nothing to do with that Vanny theory, no less. Someone else even commented on yet another video where I included fan characters for context since the main series didn't have 10, where they said fan games don't count since they're non-canon and are in a different universe, which was trying to be a dig at me for using fan characters, but I mean like there aren't 10 Springlock victims in the main series, in the books or the games combined. But this only supports my point that you can't use fan games as evidence for a theory, but you can use them on a list if need be, alright? Halfway through, in at number 5, assumptions. As the great Slade Wilson once said, assumption is the mother of all failures. Well, okay, he said it while punching a guy, so it was a little more exasperated than that, but still, the point still stands. Assuming makes an out of you and me, they say. However, this hasn't stopped fans from assuming more than one thing about the series. Not everything is connected. Not everything makes sense. And assuming that one thing is correct when it is in fact just a theory makes things more difficult for everyone. We need to have a realistic mindset when it comes to FNAF, and a load of assumptions are made on a regular basis. Especially with the other points I've been bringing up today, most of these are because of assumptions, and I'll be honest, I'm guilty of it too. It's human nature, but honestly, it's seeping into the comment section as well. And people are getting very mad and very mean. It's coming into my DMs too. Since with every theory I make, someone comes up with evidence that is supposed to disprove me, but it relies on a theory or some fact that has never been added to the canon information. And they're only that, theories or some idea rather than actual evidence. While yes, a diamond is the only thing that can cut a diamond, a theory can't disprove another theory. It just doesn't make sense. And at 4, Dead Afton. William Afton didn't die in the spring locking incident that we see in FNAF 3's 8-bit minigames, okay? He didn't. I know there are still plenty of people who think he died, but he didn't. MapHat even said it himself, since the majority of people saying this are also the ones who say that I'm wrong because MapHat said blank. He said in one of his FNAF 3 or FNAF 4 theory video, timeline video, something like that, to note that you don't see William die in the suit. You see him convulsing because of being spring locked, and then he starts twitching. But he never stops moving. He doesn't actually fully freeze, I guess. And thanks to the man in room 1280, we know that William was being kept alive by the spirit of one of his victims that the book calls Andrew, but the games call the one you should not have killed. And we know that these are meant to help fill in blanks from the past, thanks to a Reddit post from Scott from 2020 saying, quote, "Let me at least say this, future games will look forward, but look to the novels to fill in some blanks to the past." So this book single-handedly gives us a reason as to how William survived all these years rather than Remnant. The one that you should not have killed possessed him. I have been saying this since we started talking about FNAF on the channel, and everyone was mad at me for it. They're like, oh no, there's no way he could have survived for 30 years. And I'm like, bro, it's FNAF. Do you really need to what? But I was right, and people are still mad at me because I suggested. But he didn't die in the suit, okay? God, I can hear the comments already saying, yes he did, just to troll me. Stop it. Why are you trolling me on the internet? I'm just doing my job. Getting close to the end, in number 3, Mrs. Afton death. The story of Mrs. Afton, if there even is one, is a mystery we've been debating for ages. A story that hasn't even had a slight amount of explanation. No references, no mention of a name, nothing. So naturally, there are theories. However, these theories have no actual base in game, lore-wise, and instead focus on FNAF fan animated music videos and stories that are treated as canon, and sometimes heavily so. The truth is, and I'm sorry to break this to you, but we have no idea what happened to Mrs. Afton. Currently, we don't even know if there really was a Mrs. Afton, if it was just the baby mama, or if William ended up having a surrogate so that he could have children of his own. Hell, his kids may just be adopted like Courtney and Jackson from The Tempest by Julie Cross, except without the whole time travel thing. Yes, I'm plugging that book because it's my favorite book. Either way, for some reason, and I don't know what video really caused this to pick up, a load of people think that Mrs. Afton died in a car accident. I mean, it's a possibility, but that doesn't mean that it's canon. There are also others that think that William killed her, or that she just left him because she found out what he was into, but then for some reason also left behind his prime demographic. Others think that her leaving is the reason he started killing, and some people believe that she died in a plane crash. All are equally possible, but nothing is actually canon. And also, there's no proof that she is possessing Ballora, or that her name is Clara. But ultimately, in number 2, origins. Going along with the whole we don't know anything about Mrs. Afton thing, we also don't really know why William Afton decided to start killing, and more particularly, start killing kids. He could have just be your good old run-of-the-mill psycho, but some people assume that it's because his kids died. However, That is literally impossible, since his kids died as a direct result of him wanting to kill kids. Since Elizabeth died thanks to getting scooped by a baby that was specifically designed for that purpose, and Crying Child died after Elizabeth, and as a result of an animatronic with a little too much bark in that bite. Since, like I've been saying, there are no spring locks that could have failed in that mouth, since it was already in suit mode, so all the spring locks had been released. Spring locks being released is what causes a spring lock failure, so if they can't be released, they can't fail. So his children died as a direct result of him wanting to kill kids. It could have been that his wife or baby mama or whatever left him, but we can't know that for sure, and the truth is we have really nothing to go off of as for reasons as to why William started killing, because it wasn't because of possession or because of his kids, because he only finds out about that later, and his kids died because he wanted to kill others. I don't know, maybe a Fazbear Frights books will let us know. Hopefully. Please. Finally, in at number 1, singular mindset. The biggest mistake that we can make when talking about FNAF lore is having a singular mindset. One way of viewing things and then completely disregarding something if it doesn't align with those beliefs. I mean, the same remains true for life, however it's especially a problem with FNAF. I get it, okay? MatPat was here first and you've been theorizing with him for years. But the thing is, and he says it himself, that's just a theory. And that doesn't discount other theories from being possible and even right. MatPat and others have been wrong before. So when I or anyone else suggests something that's against the grain, it's still possible. Like in the case of Crying Child being the one you should not have killed. I am 100% convinced that I am right on that. I provided solid evidence and reasoning, but for some reason people seem to disregard it because it's not normal, it's against the grain, it's not what MatPat said. I even see comments that say, but MatPat said this, so you're wrong, or no, you're wrong because MatPat said that. And my point to that is literally, it's just a theory. He says it at the end of every video, every single time, for this reason. Open your brain to new possibilities, bruh, because it's the only way we'll actually get answers. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. So if we keep using the same theories over and over and expect to solve something new, it's not gonna happen. Just open your mind.